year. But I want to take just a few minutes and walk us through, because I am so quick to forget, and you might be quick to forget, how God's hand has continued to be on this church when we have faced what seems like an impossible situation this year. And God continues to take the impossible and make it possible. You realize that March 8th of 2020 was the last time our church family gathered under, now we can call it pre-COVID situations, March 8th. And I went back the other day and I watched the first live stream that we did on March 15th, and it was so funny to hear the language that was used. You know, we were thinking this is gonna be a couple of weeks, we'll be back, no big deal, we're just gonna get through the next couple of Sundays. That was kind of the message at the time. We had no idea the challenges that we were gonna face in our world, in our city, and in our church. And we faced them together, we faced them with God, and God continues to do what seems to be impossible. He continues to make it possible. And I wanna assure you and remind you this morning that our church never closed. We just pivoted. Let me say it, we've been saying this for years. The church is not a building, and God tested us in that this year. We've said it for years, you've heard it in numerous churches. The church is a people, it's not the four walls. And God said, prove it this year. God put us to the test. And I am here to say today, God did amazing things through your flexibility, your humility, your generosity, your hospitality, and your faithfulness to Him and His church. We never closed, we just pivoted. So I want to take a few minutes to walk us through a few of these areas. The first thing is this. Let's just start, get this one kind of said first, is your financial generosity. In a year that many churches across the board experienced up to 40% loss in their general giving, this is amazing. Year to date, as of this morning, our general giving has been $469,414.11. We are dead on point for our annual budget this year. We never changed our budget even when COVID happened. And you have continued to give faithfully to that. Our year to date, as of this morning, towards the For the Future campaign for this year alone is $40,462.96, bringing our grand total of what's been given to the For the Future campaign, $100,229.21. And that's a moment to say thank you, Jesus, both in room and at home. You have continued to be faithful. God has continued to be faithful to you. You have continued to put financial generosity as a priority in your life. And everything that comes out of this morning, or after this morning, came as an extension of your continued faithfulness in your giving and generosity. I want to walk us through just a couple of things that have happened this year with the For the Future campaign. We went through phase one of the building painting. That is nearing completion. We have finished phase one of the HVAC update. That was completed in the spring. We've been able to finish out phase one of the tech updates that were so desperately needed. We've got some more gear coming, some more technology coming that's just been kind of in transition because of COVID, but we are nearing the completion of phase one of that. You guys all know our church sign was installed earlier this year. Again, we can't forget that. That was part of what we needed God to do this year. It happened earlier in the year. Our church sign was finished out. And due to some of the cost savings that we were able to get throughout the year, we were actually able to take a project that was from year 3 in the For the Future campaign, bring that into year 1, and we updated all of our LED lighting under the portico, all of our lighting under the portico. We updated it to now LED cost savings lighting to make our campus safer and more attractive for people as they're on site. This year in April, May, June, and July, the elders made the decision to set aside 10% of everything given in our general fund to go towards a benevolence account that would help families in need. And as we look to the future and how we can come around these needs, here are the two things that we know that will happen as we move into 2021. How we care for people both physically and how we care for the mental health, the physical health and the mental health of people in our church becomes very important, and it becomes an extension of being the hands and the feet of Jesus. Because we cannot kid ourselves. People going through a pandemic, people going through and journeying through what we have been through, there will be some ways that we're gonna have to come around and help people that are not just financial, putting food on the table needs, and we wanna trust God and be creative with what that will look like. The church never closed, we just pivoted. Let's talk about the live stream for just a minute. In 1 week, we had to make the decision to pivot away from gathered worship services to a live stream. We had zero equipment to do this. Funny story, on a Saturday night, the night before we did our very first live stream on March 15th, when we realized we just didn't have the gear, I ran to Best Buy, this is no joke, at 8:30 at night to buy what I hoped would be the saving grace piece of gear, a $25 USB dongle that plugged into the back of the computer that we ran the live stream off for the first 3 weeks. We pivoted in a heartbeat, and since then we've done 41 services via live stream. Half of those were live stream only, nobody in the room. And in that time, this is amazing, in that time, we've seen almost a little over 4,000 views on our YouTube page alone. We've received over 2,000 on Facebook, and there's been 31,000 minutes of videos watched on just Facebook alone since March. That's 31,000 minutes of people hearing and seeing the telling of the good news of Jesus Christ. And that was something for us that was not even on our radar when we started 2020. And yet God has taken this and done what seemed to be so impossible to us and made it possible. It's funny, I bumped into a family last night. My kids and I were out, we were picking up a few things for the house, and we ran into a family that comes to church here, and I had not seen them in a while, and they've had some physical challenges. And the lady just began to share with me, and she just began to say, you know what, for the last 7 months, it would have been impossible, even apart from COVID, it would have been impossible for us to come to church. But I was able to stay connected to the church week after week after week and feel connected to my church family because of the live stream. That is something that we are so thankful for. We're going to continue to do moving forward into the future as well. The church never closed, we just pivoted. Let's talk for a minute about community care. How did we care for our community? Because this wasn't about us. This was also about our community. When COVID hit, needs arose. And you know, the reality is this, is we could have all sat around and complained and belly ached about the fact that COVID hit. We could have all done it, and I did my fair share of it. But that's not what Jesus calls us to do. Jesus calls us to action. To say, I've given you grace, now you show grace to the people around you. And so we began to respond. We have fed families in need by collecting canned goods. We've collected gift cards. We fed a family for weeks on end who both husband and wife lost their 100% of their income within the first couple of weeks of COVID hitting. We fed them and their kids for, I believe it was about 6 or 7 weeks straight, every meal. We've partnered with 2 local businesses to collect canned goods for the Agape food drive. Our partners at Collierville High School invited us to come for their drive-through graduation because all of the seniors this year who had huge expectations about graduation and this pivotal moment in their life, everything had to change for them. And we had a bunch of volunteers just show up out there on the street, holding signs, making a bunch of noise with balloons, air horns, saying, hey, great job, we're so proud of you. We even showed up at Germantown Elementary School to support them for their drive-through kindergarten graduation back in the spring. We have served Collierville High School multiple times in various ways to encourage their staff and their faculty. And then here in our church family, people began to open up their driveways in the early fall for driveway groups. Student events began to happen in driveways and in backyards for students so they could meet outside. Our kids ministry pivoted and we started doing small groups via Zoom as well as our students. And then we launched a couple of men's and women's Bible studies to try to help keep people connected as best as possible via Zoom. Even this last week, some life groups in our church continue to meet via Zoom and connect in that way. The church never closed. We just pivoted. Several folks through this year who have not been able to physically gather on a Sunday morning because of health concerns or other variables, they have stepped up to volunteer in some ways maybe they never have done before. We had numerous people show up during the week, days on end, wrapping presents for Toy Drop that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. I'll tell you this, I have never prayed with more people personally over the phone. I've never prayed with more people personally, period, in a year than I have this year. Nearly every phone call that I made or that someone called me ended in prayer if there was a care need. That is something that God used this year to move in people's lives, to move in my life. And I want to say this to you in kindness and love. If you have found yourself sitting around saying the church needs to open back up, then I just want to tell you, you have not been paying attention, because the church never closed. We just pivoted. Back when COVID first hit, the YMCA reached out to us. We've got an amazing partnership with the YMCA, and they said, we have this huge need. We all of these essential workers have to go to work. The schools are closed. We've got to find a place to put these kids, and we said, come on. So overnight in April, our facility became what they deemed an essential worker child care center. And each week, these halls, this building, Monday through Friday from 6:30 in the morning till about 6 at night, was host to anywhere between 65 to 95 kids from all over the Memphis area that just needed a safe place to come while mom and dad worked. Half of those weeks, we donated the facility. They didn't even reimburse us any cost at all. We just donated the facility to them until they finally said, no, we want to help offset some of these costs for you. Then several weeks after that program ended in August, we became a virtual learning center, both in partnership with Shelby County Schools and the YMCA. Let me say it again, the church never closed. We just pivoted. And then I want to end by talking about Toy Drop. I'll be honest, I was really nervous. Jessica and I talked about Toy Drop this year in early November, and I was really nervous. I just said, between how financially hit some people are in our church, between kind of just where people are just, maybe psychologically, I'm just not for sure what's going to happen this year with Toy Drop. We've never done this before, but I said we may have to actually offset the purchase of the toys that are not bought with some compassion ministry funds, because I don't know. We just don't know. And so we tried to set that expectation with Germantown Elementary School. And you guys not only owe me a little faith, right? You guys not only purchased every single toy that was needed, but toys continue to come in after all the toys have even been delivered this year. This last week, we had students in the building delivering toys. Moms and grandparents and foster moms coming in the building just weeping. And we heard this over and over and over again. You don't even know us. That's what a lady told me Thursday. She said, you don't even know us. Why would you do this? And it's because of the generosity of you. It's the generosity of our church family. I said, you know what, we could take $50 or $75 or $100 and we could spend that on our family, or we could save that. But God's richly blessed us, and so we want to richly bless others. And we want to use our money to be hands and feet, salt and light for people who do not have. And so this Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, there will be families all over the Mid-South who you will never meet them. You will never see their faces. You will never see the joy on those kids' faces as they open up those presents. But because of your hospitality and because of your generosity, you will change their Christmas this year. God often does the impossible things through impossible people in impossible places to accomplish impossible plans. And I just want to say, I want to make a bold statement, but here's what I believe. I believe that we will look back on 2020, and it very well may be that we've seen God more do in and through our church this year than in any other year we've ever had. Why? Because God often does impossible things through impossible people in impossible places to accomplish impossible plans. And I am so thankful for you. I am so thankful for your faithfulness, for your commitment, to your generosity, to your flexibility this year. We have no idea what is in store, but we are not going to move forward until we stop and we say, God, thank you for what you have done. We do not want to take it for granted.